I'm James Helder. Welcome to Full Court Football 24. Quite privileged to be joined by former Millwall, Brentford, Southend United, AFC Wimbledon, Braintree Town, Ebbsfleet, Greenwich Borough and Kingstonian star Mark Phillips. Firstly, Mark, how are you, mate?
Yeah, very good, thanks. Very good. Enjoying the weather.
Good, yeah. It looks nice and sunny where you are. Very nice. Very nice weather indeed.
Yeah, in this lockdown, I've got the hang of these old cameras and the backdrops and things like that. So there's some bonuses to being locked up.
I bet. A lot of people have been trying to get hold of you during lockdown for various reasons. One of the things in particular, obviously, you were one of the first sort of athletes who contacted or contracted Corona. Can we talk a little bit firstly about your experiences of that and how you, obviously you came through that?
Yeah, no problem. As you said, there was quite a few people, my previous clubs, TalkSport, I've done a little interview there, the newspapers, South London Press, quite a few newspapers picked up just because the kind of general consensus, and I think everyone will agree that everyone thought it was just 70-year-old pluses and people with underlying health issues, which wrongly or rightly we were led to believe. And then next thing you know, I'm struggling, being pretty fit and healthy, not long retired, still keep myself quite trim. I was really struggling to breathe at one point after about 5 days of my first symptoms.
It's quite a worrying time, obviously. The media hype around everything that was going on. You're in the centre of that. You're right in the middle of it. Can you sort of talk us through what happened from there?
Yeah, well, I didn't really know what was going on, to be honest. I didn't have a temperature whatsoever, so I didn't think I had a corona. I thought it was just maybe don't get worried. It's just a bit of man flu, because it felt like a really bad headache, and then the cough develops, and then my chest kind of really tightened up, and that's when I thought, oh, something's not great here. Just went out to the garden, had a little kind of knock around with my son, just a 5-yard pass, and I was on the sofa holding my chest, and I needed to rest. I was really panicking and short breath. Then woke up the next day with there's no smell or taste. So that's when I kind of, that was confirmation for me that I've got corona. And then by that kind of evening, the chest had got really bad to the point it was almost like someone squeezing it in between the chest, and I've had no health issues with breathing previously. And I called 111 for a bit of advice, and they put me straight through to 999, who got me into hospital. And thankfully, I was only there for 5-6 hours, where they kind of got control my breathing, and because my oxygen levels were really good, I wasn't that much of a danger. And even though it felt like my chest was really tight, my body was actually kind of absorbing enough oxygen to not be a concern.
Do you think your fitness level, being quite a fit person, I know you're very actively involved in the coaching aspect of the game now, do you think that was a sort of a major factor into you making a quicker recovery than sort of other people have with the illness?
I think possibly. I think it's pretty much the whole thing is us going into the unknown. So I'd be kind of guessing and clutching at straws to give a definite answer. But for me, it really struck me how worried it was. If I'm someone who's pretty healthy, and I was worried. I've got through quite a few injuries in my time, which I could take a bit of pain. And I was worried, and I was trying to kind of play it down. But when I was struggling to breathe, that was a real issue. It really dawned on me that if people did have kind of underlying issues, or maybe they had a kind of a weak immune system, maybe, or they weren't as fit, I could see how it was taking its toll, and the death rates are obviously as horrific as they are.
How long would you say it took you to make a full recovery from sort of the original diagnosis to then you being able to return to work and, more importantly, feeling more like yourself, feeling 100%?
Yeah, well, the doctors and the hospital, they said obviously 14 days isolation, and anyone who come in contact with me, another 14 for them. And luckily, no one, I'd already self-isolated, so that was quite straightforward. But for me, it wasn't. There was no way after 2 weeks I was kind of going to be around anyone or go out and about. It was at least 3.5, 4 weeks till I felt up to I could actually go out here and maybe not put people at risk, you know. So for me, I still feel effects now. I've had no asthma, but on occasions I'll wake up and I have a tight chest now, and I'll have to use an inhaler just to get me going. But then, for example, I've been out and about on my bike doing 100k rides, and I felt completely normal, you know. So it's really random that I can really kind of put my body through some cardio work, but then I'll wake up in a hot weather and I'll feel tight chested. So it's real hit and miss. I think it's probably done some damage to my lungs. And so that's my thinking, is that I want to get out and do some cardio to obviously increase my lung capacity, that's all I know really. But I couldn't give you a medical answer, you know.
No, fair enough. Well, I'm glad you're feeling a little bit better anyway, mate. You've certainly perked up a little bit in the last week or so.
After the TalkSport interview, where people thought I was on death's door the way I was sounding.
You look sounded really rough, to be honest. I'm glad, like I say, you've made a bit of a better recovery since then. Today with the podcast, I want to look back on your footballing career, your achievements, a little bit about your upbringing and how you managed to get and find yourself in these situations. Looking from the outside in, you've had a fantastic career. Not many people can say that they've had an opportunity to play for the team that they supported as a boy. Fantastic in itself. Where do we begin? So I know you're from Lambeth. Can you start me off a little bit about your childhood?
Yeah, so I was born in Lambeth at King's College. We grew up in Brockleaf with my mum and dad and my brothers and sisters. And really, I was in love with football from a real young age. I remember 2-foot and tackling my aunt with my first pair of high-techs, you know, on Christmas Day and getting a can I say it, bollocking, you know. But so I was in love with football from the start. I first started training, I think it was about 6 or 7 years old. Local team called Vista. And then when in my primary school, I joined a team called Elms in Catford, which was highly successful. Mum and dad supported me, taking me to training whenever I could. And times were a little bit different then. I was down the park all day, every day, challenging anyone that could breathe, you know, to a game of football. Played on the street corner, played in the alleys, you know, anywhere was a game of football. So real kind of street football mentality, and that's where I learnt my skills from.
Would you have played sort of school football and then district football? Was that a thing that was around at the time, like playing for your borough team and stuff?
Yeah. So from a young age, my team Elms were quite successful. We had some really good players and a good manager and good family support. We won London Cups, Bexley Cups, Bexley League, and that was a real renowned league back in the day. Bexley League, I don't think it exists anymore, or amalgamated to the Kent League or something like that. But we done really well. But I was quite kind of. I played with my mates, and I played for the love and the fun of the game. So the district manager kind of come sniffing when I joined secondary school, really, because I think that's when it started at year 7, and because there was a lot of boys in my rival team that we didn't get on too well with. I turned them down because I didn't want to play with these boys who I'd play against on a weekend and it'd be a bit of a battle, you know. We'd always stuff them, but I didn't like the way they were about. So I decided, for whatever reason, I can't even remember why I did it, but I decided to not play for districts, even though I bypassed that and played for Kent.
Yeah. Would it be playing for Kent when you would have got looked at by more scouts and stuff, when the Millwall scouts would have watching you? Because I'm guessing you would have had a lot of opportunity before going to Millwall. Other scouts would have been coming speaking to you and looking at your progress and stuff.
Yeah, it wasn't so much like that back in the day. There was scouts everywhere, but luckily we had a manager, Graham, and my dad was quite football savvy, that there was a lot of clubs sniffing, but they kind of knew what way they wanted to guide us. And so they were sniffing. And my manager, Graham, was a bit of a local kind of gangster. So they knew not to push and kind of go around back doors, you know, to try to do a few dodgy things, which do happen because it's out of fear probably. But Graham looked after us, and at the age of 13, when I think it was Crystal Palace, Millwall, a host of other clubs were looking, me and my dad and Graham sat down and had a conversation, and we chose to go to trial for Millwall, or go to train with them, with 4 other players from my team. And from there, it was quite quickly that I progressed kind of to taking in full time to the kind of youthful scholarship and youth teams.
Give me a little insight to what it was like in the Millwall youth team. What was the camaraderie like amongst the lads? And I'm guessing it must have been not the Millwall we're used to now. We're going back a little bit. So what were the facilities like and just the mood amongst being a part of that squad?
Well, I'd have to start from the start, really, because when I was 13, I was playing for the love of it. I was quite a competitor, and I was up for kind of any kind of battle. And I remember going to Southwark Park, which the youth facility was out of, and it was like an AstroTurf in the middle of a running track. And I remember it being quite daunting because I'd turn up, I didn't know what was going on. There was all these players who I was looking at thinking they were unbelievable. I was waiting in the corridor outside the change rooms, and the Millwall Lionesses were there, and they were kind of like almost like queued up alongside you, and they were grabbing your bum and all sorts of things as you're walking through. So it was quite intimidating. coming to train with all the Millwall kind of youth team and surviving the Lionesses at the time, you know. But it was a good laugh, and some of the parents looked after me. I remember Charlie Hearn's dad particularly looked after me and showed me what it's all about. And over time, then players that I really respected and looked up to, who had been there obviously years, suddenly started disappearing, and I was still there, you know. So I was obviously doing something good, and then I was taken out of secondary school and playing in the under-18s with the likes of Tim Cahill, Stephen Reid, Joe Dolan. Did I say Tim Cahill? Yeah, Ronnie Ball, Aleke Adunsi. There was just numerous names there that eventually then went on to do amazing things. So it's a great upbringing and learning to kind of become a man in them games, because they were fierce. There was a lot of London rivalry with the clubs, and the banter in the change room was as harsh, with daily fights and the tackles in the training at the Millwall camp were legendary. You know, like a 2-foot tackle was almost just a standard procedure. So it definitely taught me to toughen up a little bit.
Yeah. I want to ask you what it was like on the day you got your first professional contract from Millwall. All your hard work and dedication over the years, seeing lads come and go, you've managed to get to that final hurdle. Can you talk me through that day?
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, it was a memorable day. But for me, there was a bigger picture. I'd already set myself goals from my dad taking me to games as a youngster at Millwall, and he was a Millwall fan. Various stadiums. I just had the bug to play in front of a crowd, and that was kind of my real thing that attracted me to football. I wanted to be out there in front of them thousands with that, you know, that tingle up your spine when the chance to go in and everyone's behind your team, and that kind of, I really bought into that, and that I wanted to be that guy on the pitch. I was looking at a young age, I was thinking, this is me. I can do that kind of thing. And so for me, when I was around the first team, coming as a 16 years old, I was watching the first team train, trying to learn off them, being around them brilliant characters that helped you as a youngster. So for me, my goal was the first team and play in front of them thousands of people. And that pro contract, and I don't disrespect it at all, because it was a huge milestone in my journey, in my path. But actually, it was a necessity to get to where I needed to be. That I knew I was going to be professional. I believed it, and my goal was to play in that team. So it was a great day. Obviously, massive pride and doing my mum and dad proud and my family proud. But it was just part and parcel of me now making that first team.
As young players do, you're assigned a player to clean boots, who you're going to be in charge of their boots. Can you remember what player you would have been looking after and whose boots you would have been cleaning?
Yeah, I always remember being very unfortunate and looking at my friends who were getting looked after at Christmas, and almost kind of like thinking, you so-and-so, because there were certain players, certain pros that could remember their youth team days and how much that money meant to you. We were on probably £42.50, I think it was, a week. So that Christmas money kind of could buy your mum and dad some Christmas presents, you know, or give you a good night out, whatever you were into. So it really meant a big deal. So £50 were kind of standard procedure, but there was some players along the line of Bobby Bowery, Ricky Newman, Dennis Wise. I remember being with Tony Warner particularly. They used to really look after the youth team, and unfortunately, I kind of got Paul Moody and Mark Bircham, who no disrespect, but were tight as arseholes. And kind of handed me a score after all my. You got, bearing in mind that at that time we were out in the winter in a kind of trough with this freezing cold water. This tap's nearly frozen because it's so cold. You're cleaning their boots day in, day out, twice a day, before and after training, and to be handed a like £20 note, it's almost like a slap in the face, you know. And I remember going to Paul Moody and going, he was a big guy. We all know Paul Moody, he's a big guy. And I remember kind of going to him and like, are you serious, kind of thing. Like, I think he actually tried to swerve me, and I had to kind of keep on, like, you know, I'm here, mate, I'm here every day, you know, and he tried to get away with it. But I finally got my money. But there was some good players and some bad players.
Can you remember in the early days who was the big characters in the Millwall dressing room? So when you're first breaking through, so when you're training with the first team and the under-18s at that early stage, who was the big characters, the big sort of team leaders?
Well, when I first broke in, there was kind of guys like Tony Witter, Bobby Bowery, Ricky Newman. They were big characters, and they had little Richard Sadler had broken as well as a young. Well, he wasn't quite a youngster at the point, and they were all the boys, you know, under the manager. And Tim Cahill, Stephen Reid, Paul Eiffel were breaking in, so they were finding their feet. You know, even though they're doing tremendously well in the first team, they were kind of being guided by them older lads. So, and I think that's why them boys done so well, because they were guided by older boys in their cells for the youngsters. They then looked after them. So there's a real big character, and back then it was a little bit sink or swim. You had to have a little bit about you and be able to take some blows, shall we say, in various kinds of ways to kind of get on with them big boys.
So what we're looking at training a little bit then at that era. Big tackles coming in, flying left, right, and centre. Is it true with the rumours that people would sort of clap a tackle as much as they would a spectacular goal in them days in the training sessions?
I don't know if where it kind of come from, honestly, because it wasn't taught as if it was the Millwall way or anything like that. But my youth team and the year above, particularly the year two years above, there were some tough boys in there, and almost to the point where the first team knew not to mess around with them, because they would. I mentioned, like, there'd be fights every day. There'd be minimum one fight, and it'd be a proper fight. And it was almost that mentality that everyone wanted to win was taken onto the pitch as well, because we'd done really well as a youth team. So it wasn't so much that, but it kind of just took over, because a lot of boys in that team then went on to play for the first team, and it was a kind of a mentality at the club that was the desire levels to win. And not only was there class on the pitch in terms of skills, tactics, passing, but there was a real hunger and desire, which the tackles were a big part of it. And I think that was something maybe that the players recognised, the fans liked. Because, you know, most Millwall fans, they want to see desire, work rate, hard work, and the tackles. It's not as good as a goal, because obviously it's not going to win you a game, but it's part of that desire and showing that you care, you know?
Now, like most young professionals, I'm guessing you would have played a lot of reserve team football before making that first team and getting into them first teams. Can you remember them sort of days and what it was like being a young player, playing reserve team football, playing against players, big professionals that are coming back into their club, maybe after injury, after fitness, young players coming through, a kind of whole mix of consortium of players. What was that like?
Yeah, it was a step up, and I'd done it pretty young. So they were really pushing you through the time at Millwall, and again, we were one step on the ladder. You know, we were playing at stadium. So when you're in the reserves at the time, youth team would be at a training ground predominantly, unless it was a youth cup game and quite far on. So that was a big hype in the youth cup, and that's why it's become so big, because you actually get to play in a stadium. Obviously, your mum and dad and fans come, but reserve football was against them high level pros, and at the time it wasn't just used for fitness of people coming back. There were some very good players playing the first team, and it would be that you would play an extra game just to get a bit of sharpness. So each week you'd be playing against big names that played numerous first team level Premiership teams, and it would always be in a stadium. So it was a big step up, and you as anyone with desire to play in that first team, it was another chance to test yourself and progress your path to that first team and show that you're good enough. Ultimately, it was to showcase yourself, because the first team manager would be there, and you'd be showing week in, week out that I'm ready to play in that team, whatever age you were. And that was the mentality for myself and a lot of us, that we wanted to show what we could do.
Just seeing some of the other players in the team start to kick on, the likes of Stephen Reid, the likes of Paul Eiffel, Richard Sadler, are you thinking to yourself, I'm going to get my chance soon enough? I can see a progression here where these lads have made the pathway, they've made that step into being a first team regular. Could you sense yourself that you was on the cusp of getting into the sort of first team squad? Yeah,
I think the environment that the club bred, that you always knew you had a chance, and you would be given a chance if you had done what would need to be showed. Really, there was numerous players stepping in, like you mentioned, and not just kind of making a debut and doing okay. They were doing really well, making themselves permanent fixtures, and the feeling was that we were just as good, well, not just as good, but just as worthy to play in that team, and that's why a lot of us come through at similar times. Got to give Steve Gritt and guys like that fair dues, because he would take us youngsters out kind of hour and a half extra training each day, and really kind of make us learn our kind of trade, and people like Leon Court, who didn't play that many times for the first team at Millwall there and went on to Premiership careers. So it shows you what kind of man he was and the level of training we were putting in to make that team. And we were at the time willing to go through any kind of brick walls, do any extra training to get ourselves in that team. And we were rewarded for our hard work by getting put in at a certain point, and then it was your turn, and you had to take that chance, really.
What can you tell me about your professional debut? Was you aware like you were going to get on? Did you make your debut as a substitute, or did you start?
Well, I was in and around travelling with the first team, so I knew I was there or thereabouts. And at that point, it was the reserves kind of becomes. You've got the right attitude, but it becomes a necessity. You know the benefits of it, but you wanted to be in that team now. There was like you weren't interested in reserves anymore. That was where you felt you deserved. I actually made my my debut in the FA Cup away at Rushden and Diamonds, which was an eye opener because it was an early rounds at the time. We weren't the kind of third round qualifiers. And they were kind of a League Two club, I believe, at the time. And so there were some big boys who were really kind of saw you as a young kid and was going to let you know about it with elbows and all sorts of stuff.
What stage did you start to establish yourself then as a first team? Did you feel there was a point where you've got in the side, you've got the shirt, you're now going to get a run of consistency of games and hit that form that you've been dreaming about?
Well, I made my kind of league debut in the Championship against Preston North End. And that was a great eye opener again because I was now playing Championship football and my previous debut had been in the FA Cup, so that was a chance to test my wits. And I remember I'll never forget because I used to always wear moulds to games, and studs used to hurt my feet and I just couldn't wear them. And then I remember Gordon Strachan was in the changing rooms. Mark McGee gave me my debut and he was his best mate. And so I remember him wishing me luck, and it was kind of making a bit of a big deal. And I was just being completely relaxed, thinking it's just another game. And I went out to warm up, and a few of the boys noticed I had moulds on, and they were kind of going, "Mark, you've got moulds on." Like, I go, yeah, don't worry, I always wear moulds. And they go, "No, you need to wear studs, mate. You're going to slip over everyone." I said, "Don't chill. I wear moulds. I never slip. And kind of by the time, 4th, 5th, 6th time, Tim Cahill particularly come up to me and goes, "Mark, mate, it's your debut. You can't slip. This could be your kind of final game." And I was like, almost going, "Oh, go on then." Like, I wear them, but I've got no mould. I've got no studs. And he goes, "Well, I've got a spare pair, and wear mine." And I was like, "Oh, really?" Like, I've got to make my debut wearing someone else's boots who's half size too big. And he had everyone knows Timmy Cahill had a renowned spring. And his boots were they curled up at the front, like almost like running trainers. And I remember going to put them on, and they were not only too big, but they were so uncomfortable. But I'd shut all the boys up, and it was like, I've got studs on, so let's just get on with it. Put it out of my mind, positive mental attitude. And I had a great game. And unfortunately, because I was wearing these boots and they have such a different shaped foot than mine, I got cramp in the kind of 75th minute, and had to come off on my debut. And I thought that was going to be my last game because I come off with cramp, you know.
Oh, I'm just picturing. I'm not laughing. I'm just picturing you now laying there, cramp, Aladdin boots on, size too big, curling up at the front. It's funny how things like that can play on your mind, though, isn't it? If they wouldn't have said anything, you would have quite happily played in your moulds, not a care in the world.
Yeah, looking back now, I may have slipped over with my moulds. I may not have, you know. Particularly them kind of Premiership standard grounds. The way the grass is, to have it flat and quality, they're really hard. So actually, a combination of water and wetness and the hard grounds can actually make you slip quite a bit. So studs are definitely advisable. So even if I had curly feet on the day, I thought it was probably a right call in the end. But after that, I had to be quite patient. And I think it was a little while before I kind of concreted myself. Mark McGee had kind of started giving me my regular run of games, but I struggled with hamstrings as well. So I came in and showed real potential where I was become a regular, playing 4 or 5 games in a row. But unfortunately, I was having hamstrings injuries, and then I'd be out a month, come back again, show how good I was, and it was quite comfortable. So that's really where I set my goals to be the Premier League personally, because I found the standard, not being arrogant, but it was comfortable. I felt at home. And that may have been a team that I was around that made it so much easier for me. But I felt I just had the attributes in terms of playing, the way I like to play football, that I could have made it. But unfortunately, the injuries were quite a regular theme through my time at Millwall.
Do you think how frustrating was it for a young player like yourself, breaking into Millwall, breaking into the team, and to have them constantly, them nibble injuries where they're not career threatening, but they're enough to keep you out of the team for a month, where you've then got to get your fitness back up to then get back in the team. How did you handle that and deal with that as a young player mentally, Mark?
It was quite tough because obviously I'd had the kind of bit in my teeth where I knew what I could do. I was playing in that team and amongst it was easily like 20 to 30,000 fans each week. So it was a real kind of addictive. It was really addictive to want to be out there. So it was quite a knock. And then when it became a regular kind of theme, I was doing everything I could. I was with the physio, doing extra work, extra training, building up my strength. So I was doing everything I felt I could possibly do. It was quite frustrating and it happened quite often. I'd play 3 or 4 games and it happened in the first 5-10 minutes of the game when I really open up. And that kind of went on for about 18 months. So I think that's where I built my mental strength from, because it's quite harsh watching the boys really doing well and coming in each day, kind of the banter flying around everywhere, everyone on kind of cloud 9. And then particularly at the time, Millwall flying on the first team pitch as well. So everyone coming in on a Monday buzzing, you being at the game on a Saturday but not being part of it. So it takes its toll. But I think the only way to react is positively, and you've got to use that as fuel to fire you on even more and benefit yourself really by channeling it the right way.
What's it like supporting Millwall, playing for Millwall? What were the fans like with you at that time? Because I'm guessing you would have been a big inspiration to a lot of young fans and a lot of people associated with the club. So what were the Millwall fans like with you at that time?
Particularly other than McGee and Dennis Wise, where I'd done well. It was great. It was great. Obviously, as a local Millwall boy, my dad supported the club. Whenever I get interviews, there'd always be a theme of that I was a Millwall supporter and stuff. So it was. I got a lot of support. Obviously, the Millwall fans, if you're not doing well, they're going to let you know about it as well. But I particularly got a lot of support and real encouragement. I think the way I love to tackle helped as well. But I think that the way the Millwall fans are so passionate, it kind of similar kind of beliefs to myself, that when you go on that pitch, you give it your all. And I think that kind of helped me particularly under Dennis Wise and Mark McGee when I had some 3 or 4 good seasons.
How was Mark McGee as a manager? How did you get on with him personally?
I really like Mark because he'd been there and done it at a high level, so he had that respect. He knew his tactics, and ultimately he gave the youngsters a chance with numerous names coming through at the time. So I really kind of, whoever makes your debut, you obviously you think very highly of them. And the fact that he put me in each time after an injury, no messing around. Looking back in hindsight now, it shows how highly he thought of me and where I could go in the game. But unfortunately, it's a results business, and he moved on, and that's when Dennis Wise came in and took over the reins and done a great job himself. You know.
What was he like initially to work with from your point of view? Did you get on with him instantly? Was he someone that you appreciated working under?
Yeah, well, Mark brought him in as a player, and then when Mark moved, so me and Dennis would play together first of all. So I think I was fortunate enough that he knew what I was about. He knew that I was a grafter, and in every daily training I'd be working my socks off to kind of improve myself and better myself. So Dennis and Ray were really good with us youngsters. We'd play young v old all the time, and Dennis would come on the youngsters team versus the real senior, experienced pros who'd been there and done it at the highest level. So he obviously had that Chelsea way about him, where Chelsea like to bring through a lot of youngsters as well, and they nurtured us really well, and ultimately he taught him, the likes of Kevin Muscat, Darren Ward, really kind of talked us through the games at the first team level as well, and he was great to have him in playing in front of me.
How would you describe Dennis Wise's man management? Because I've heard rumours that if he liked you, things were great, but if he, for whatever reason, had a dislike for you, it would be quite that would be the end of your sort of time and tenure at the club. Did you see the ruthless side of Dennis Wise while you were there?
Yeah, Dennis was definitely a winner. He was definitely a winner. He's one of them ones you want on your team, 100%, because he'll give it his all. He'd try every little trick of the trade to kind of tip the scales in your favour. But he's one of them ones that if he plays against you, you know that he's your worst enemy kind of thing. He's one of them ones that you'd hate to play against. So I was really glad he was on my team. But yeah, he took me under his wing and really looked after me. But I did see where some of the boys, for whatever reason, obviously I was a young boy just plying my trade at the time. Who, yeah, if you got on the wrong side of him or he didn't fancy you, he certainly didn't mince his words and let you know about it.
That team, that Millwall team, that around that era, are very underappreciated. Did you know at the time just how good some of the boys in the squad were?
I think a big thing with football, everyone, when you're living in the moment, maybe a lot of people aren't appreciated or taken. The class isn't seen. You know, obviously you've got the individuals, which everyone you can see a mile off. But looking back now, I think that the team get a lot more recognition from what at the time. Again, it was a great year that we could have got promotion to the Premier League, and I'm not too sure we realised at the time, but that was the way the club were pushing. Theo was investing. Dennis and Ray were buying and signing some real good players, and we beat all the teams that got to the Premier League that year quite comfortably. All the teams around the playoffs. We just missed out on the playoffs due to probably losing against the smaller clubs at that level, the Brightons and other teams like that, you know, which cost us. And after that season, ideally there would have been more investment, because I feel Dennis would have definitely took it on another level that next year, but it wasn't to be.
Talk me through what happened that next season. I'm guessing a bit of an exodus of players leaving the club, new players coming in, new goals, new targets. Can you pick me up from that point?
Yeah, it was all just a bit of a mess, really, because obviously we had just come off having a really good season to kind of a negative where Dennis was moving on, Dennis and Ray, and no one really knew what was going on. My contract was coming up. I had some interest around the place, and then Dennis was gone, and the Theo was cutting he was in the press. He was cutting the budget. We were all talking to each other, saying, "What's going on here?" First thing, kind of one player gets sold. Second player gets sold. Some players are being put on a transfer list. So it was a real up and down period. And obviously, you're going away off the back of the season, working hard on your fitness, your personal kind of goals to kick on the next season. So it was a real strange one, because it was a new chairman, Jeff Burnage, come in from Theo, and then there was new players, new management, and you didn't really know if you were coming and going. I think pre-season even got put back a week, because you just didn't know what was going. But I got tied up pretty early with a contract where I committed to myself for another 2 to 3 years, I believe it was. But then I'm seeing my teammates I played along all sides disappearing, all seasons disappearing. So at the time, you just try to focus on your goals and to impact the team, the club positively. And obviously, I'd had that experience for a year, success under them big name players. So I was kind of planning to use that experience and pass that on to the youngsters who were coming through as well.
What notable youngsters would have been coming through at that time? Who stands out for you?
Yeah, you had some real good youngsters. You had like Peter Sweeney, Marvin Elliott, Marvin Williams. Some real kind of good talent coming through that Millwall's renowned to bring kids through. And there was a few missed years between myself and the next kind of crop of players. So there were some big hopes on them. Marvin went on to have a great career in the Championship. So did Peter. We didn't even mention Ben May as well. But it was a frustrating year, because Steve Claridge, obviously well documented, come in. We'd had a pre-season, and then before the first ball's kicked, Steve's gone. Kind of the next manager's come in, and he didn't last too much longer. So it was so up and down. You never really knew what was going on. And next thing you know, we're in a relegation battle, and we've got a manager coming in on a Thursday having a laugh and a joke, and we're all kind of looking at each other thinking a lot of us are youngsters, we've not been in this position in our careers yet. And we wanted guidance. We wanted kind of someone to come and steady the ship, But all the senior pros had moved on. So it's a real kind of up and down, and not knowing where you were at the time, and ultimately resulted in the relegation.
Must have been a sad time for yourself as a local lad, as a Millwall player, as a Millwall fan. You've no doubt got a responsibility and feel that responsibility, maybe more than certain players in the squad. Would that be a fair assessment?
Um, I think because you know the club's mentality, and a lot of players come in. Players at the end of the day, players are going to give their all. They're going to give their 100% for the club and also for themselves personally. Because remember, they want to progress their career as well onto the next level. So everyone's going to give the same effort on the pitch. But Mill's a very unique club, and maybe some of us local boys helps get it over to that. Sometimes you need to show a bit of effort, a bit of willing, and that sometimes can lead to them being the 12th man, because the Mill crowd are fearsome and they can really make a difference on the pitch when they're behind you. But unfortunately, I suffered a second cruciate ligament in that period of time there with the relegation, so I couldn't really kind of help too much through the latter part of the season.
Now, for those that don't know, a cruciate ligament injury is a very, very serious injury. Could be career-ending. To suffer a second one at, what were you then, 22, 21?
Yeah, my first one was about 21, and then my second one was about, I think it was about 25, 24, 25.
It's a very, very serious injury. Having had the first one and dealt with that and got yourself back to that match fitness, were you sort of in that frame of mind to do that again? Did you understand then what it was going to take to get your body back to where you'd been?
Yeah, well, the first time I was so hungry, I flew back. I think that the medical time is 6 months, so you can't touch a ball or play or train, sorry. And I was raring to go after 5 months. I was raring to. I wanted to be in that team again. I just flew. I was training from kind of 8 a.m. till kind of 5 p.m. every day to really kind of get myself back as quick as possible, because I felt I belonged in that first team. So the first one, even though it was really tough to watch the boys do it so well, I flew through it and I was just hungry. Second time was really painful, actually, the way it came about, because the manager at the time, Willie Donahue, he didn't really give me the chance that I deserved. He didn't really show me much support. So I was actually on the verge of a move to MK Dons, and I went away for a week and trained with them and done really well in games. The first year they had the Stadium MK, and Turbulence wanted to sign me, so I came back to Millwall on the Friday, ready to sign for the Monday and then join them. And I remember I come on the Friday, it was the day before a game. They just had a small-sided game. My agent kind of said, don't train. Whatever you do, don't train. I think it was actually a few of the older pros. Don't train. Make sure you're right. And then Willie kind of grabbed me in the corridor and said, like, maybe just train, keep your sharpness. And still at the time, I was young and impressionable, and I wanted to do the right thing. And I listened to Willie. Went out and trained, thinking I'll take it easy. The goalie coach Kevin Dearden gave me a ridiculous overhead throw. So I played it right back in a training game, and then over my head, and I kind of had to take it down out the sky over my shoulder. And as I took it down, I landed, and my knee went and done my cruciate the second time. So that was really painful, because I knew what it took. I knew I had to go through that pain again. I knew, obviously, I was on the verge of moving, and ultimately, I had to watch MK Dons going on to win the league that year, the first year in the stadium, with some real high-profile players there, and obviously the pain of sitting in that treatment room for another, what turned out to be 11 months, because being the second cruciate, it didn't go as smoothly as the 6 months first time around. So that really was a blow, and I think, again, I had to really use the positive mindset to want to make myself better. But ultimately, it cost me. Looking back now, it cost me a yard of pace. My movement wasn't quite as good, but I thank God for actually coming back and playing again. Because 2 cruciates is quite rare to actually have the career that I then went on to have. I've liked Joe Dolan, a brilliant player, done his cruciate twice and had to retire quite soon, unfortunately, afterwards. I think there's numerous cases like that. So fair play to my surgeon, who I was on first name terms by that point, Andy Williams, who's one of the best surgeons in Europe. I took the rehab. He said that it was down to me taking the rehab so seriously that I actually managed to carry on playing until I was 36, 37 years old,
See, when you've had an injury like that, are you worried when you're, even though you're recovered and even though you're mentally you're healed, are you worried when you go on the football pitch? Does that play in your mind a little bit when you're going in for a 50-50 or you're going in for a robust tackle or up high for a jump? Things like that play on a footballer's mind, knowing you've had that 11-month injury.
Well, I think that naturally you're very protective over it. You've done all the training, the physio, the S&C, strength and conditioning team have kind of prepared you for training. So, but you can never actually recreate a game or that match level and intensity training with the squad. So you kind of ease yourself in, you take it carefully, you play kind of 45 minutes in the reserves or wherever it may be and build that up. But it takes a good 3 months really to really get that. It's more about trust in yourself, you know. Your body's you feel your body's let you down, and by this point my body I feel has let me down quite a few times, even though I've done everything possibly to be professional and make sure I've set myself up right to not get an injury or achieve my goals. So you've got to build that trust up in yourself, you know, which is a tricky mental battle. But it takes about 3 months, and then it becomes you're back in the flow of things. All them kind of negative thoughts disappear because you're playing the game you love. And obviously you're out there for 90 plus minutes with your mates, with your teammates, trying to get that 3 points. So after about 3 months, you kind of forget about it, and now you're just focusing on now setting your goals each week to be more productive and go higher and higher.
Talk to me about Brentford. How did the move to Brentford come about? What was the thinking and logic behind it, and the process of that move?
Well, with Brentford, it was during my second cruise ship, so I was actually injured still. And Kenny Jackett came in. I think I had to spend a month during pre-season back. So I actually went to Brentford during pre-season. I think it was about 2 weeks before the season started. So I had to kind of throw myself in the deep end because Kenny come in. Obviously, he wanted to make his changes, implement his own ideas, his philosophies, and bring in his boys that he knew that he could do a job for him and trust. So ultimately, I was in the physio room for longer term, and so it was a simple choice really that I was going to move on. But for me, by that point, it was about time. I'd gone through enough kind of negative injuries, come back, and I'd kind of knew I needed a fresh start as well. So even though it's a big wretch to leave Millwall, the club I loved, it was the right time, and I was ready for a fresh challenge. And so Brentford, I knew were a club that they were interested. They were a club rebuilding, and I knew every time I played them at Millwall that it was never an easy game. You know, I don't think the history. You'd have to kind of, don't quote me, but Millwall wouldn't get many points off of Brentford. So I knew it was a good club, and I was looking forward to a new challenge. It wasn't too far. I was quite a homely boy. My mum and dad were closer. So I never fancied moving. I was a London lad, and so I could get to Brentford from my house, you know.
Makes a lot of sense when you think about it. Not that far to travel. Like you said, if you're going to live in the same place, your family and everyone are in the area. If another option would have come abroad or even in a different part of the country, were you of that mindset that you wouldn't have taken it because you like London, like being around your home comforts and stuff?
Yeah, things had changed by that point because I'd 2 young kids, so I kind of and one was school age, so I had to kind of think of that as well. You know, you've got a bigger picture that with the injury, you kind of got half an eye on thinking, is my body going to let me down again? So you wanted to do the right by your family as well. I definitely wanted. There was chances for me to go abroad, but up to Scotland. So during a period where I wasn't in the team at Millwall, Falkirk came in and actually flew me up to go and do a training session with them to have a look at me. I'd been recommended by someone linked with Millwall, and obviously I was a hot prospect there, but wasn't playing. Well, let me get this. So yeah, I flown up to Falkirk, and the next 2 games were Rangers away and Celtic away. So obviously I was buzzing to kind of go and play in these games. So I'd signed the loan agreement. I flew back on the plane, and by the time I'd landed, Millwall put a kibosh on it. I don't know for whatever reason, whether it's politics, they didn't want didn't want to see me go on and do well at the time, because it was kind of around the time where the club was a bit of a shambles. Or the excuse was that they needed me on the pitch, but I still went on the bench that Saturday. So I think there was a bit of politics involved. So if the opportunity had come up, I remember Bob Peters and a bit of politics as well, actually, that I was doing really, really, really well in the team. He had a big contact with Genk, which was his previous club, and they wanted to sign me. And funny enough, when the club Genk contacted Millwall about taking me, it was around the time when they wanted to offload people on money, and they offered Darren Ward instead of me, because obviously he was on some big money and they wanted him off the wage bill, where that was actually my move. So there was times that I was going to go to Falkirk, but it got pulled out underneath me, and also I was going to go to Genk, and I remember googling the stadium and watching some of the games and stuff, thinking, bang, that's me. You know, the atmosphere in them foreign games, the foreignness. And I'd already had that taste from Hungary, the Ferencváros game, where I was on the bench for the UEFA Cup, Europa League, or whatever you want to call it now. So I knew what them stadiums were all about, and I fancied that fire atmosphere.
Who signed you for Brentford?
So it was Andy Scott and Terry Bullivon signed me, and that was a breath of fresh air at the time. I went there, I saw the quality straight away in training. We had some training games and stuff. I was signed at this point, but I straight away got a taste, even though I had to rush myself back because I still hadn't played a game or even trained a session. I kind of had to just throw myself into the deep end, and luckily they were so impressed with the way that I trained and played. Bearing in mind I hadn't even trained or played in, I think it was 12 months by that period, that I was kind of shoved straight into the team, and we went on then to have a great year, really kind of snuck under the radar and become champions in my first year.
Incredible achievement. 12 months ago, I'm sitting, I can't get in the team, I've got cruciate injury. Now here you are sitting there, division champion. Incredible.
Yeah, it was a memorable year. It was just such a great change room, you know. Great set of lads. Everyone had something to prove, and we were galvanised that we were going out on that pitch and we were all fighting and grafting for each other. To be fair, Andy Scott and Terry set us up really well as a unit. So we I think it was about 22 clean sheets that year. We were real hard to beat team, and then they made some real shrewd signings in the loan windows, and we'd pick up important points regularly away from home on a Tuesday night, where teams struggled to go to play places like Accrington, and we were looking. We ended up winning the league with a game to spare in the end, but we only actually realised probably 5-6 weeks left of the season that we could actually do this, you know, boys.
What was the mood like after you guys were crowned champions with a game to go? Can you remember the atmosphere amongst the players and the schedule of events that happened after that?
Well, I'd probably have to take it back to the start, because I remember signing and then I think it was all players kind of have a look at who the bookies' favourites are and whose favourites to go up, whose favourites to go down, playoff stuff. And I think we were kind of they were putting odds on us to go down, and that was real fuel that we were thinking, he's taking the piss here, kind of thing. Like I could see the quality, and ultimately that's what happened at the end. But so yeah, we had Darlington away, and we were walking on water at that point, and as we come out, it was just a feeling of you know, kind of confidence, and not an arrogance, but an air of confidence that they were, whatever they threw us that day, that we were taking that 3 points. And it was first 5 minutes we'd already scored, and then we got a second within 25 minutes, and it was free flow football. And at that point, obviously most teams' fans are going to big you up, but our chant was that we were the Barcelona of the lower leagues. And I make no claim that we're anything like Barcelona, you know, but we were renowned for some okay football, some nice football. So that day at Darlington was just memorable. That we it was almost hurry up and blow the whistle, ref. I think that was even bantering with the Darlington team as well, and just saying, come on, he was like running around joking, just hurry up, blow the whistle, get this over and done with. And when we blew the whistle, the celebration started with the fans in the crowd, and days that I remember forever.
What does it feel like when you're celebrating with fans and the adulation and that moment that you've achieved something very important to the club?
it's surreal, that you don't think about the bigger picture. You're just really enjoying that moment, and it's all that hard work, all them emotions, and when you've gone away to them slogs, them long trips, and you may have not got them 3 points you deserved, or you've been nicked in the last minute. All these kind of emotions just come out, and you can like unleash it. And you're there, all your teammates, your squad, your manager, all of you have played a part in this, and it's just an uplifting feeling where you want to savour, enjoy it, and you probably look back and you're kind of embarrassed at a few of the things you do, jumping around, singing Championes and all that kind of stuff. But at the time, you didn't care, and that's probably the mood that most players who've achieved success at whatever level they play at. Ultimately, from that moment on, that's why you play football, to relive their moments.
Again, is it worrying when you've got a team promoted, you and your buddies and your teammates, and you know the next division is going to be higher, the manager's going to have a little bit more wage budget, probably going to see some new faces coming in? What goes through your mind as a player when the high of promotion sort of drops down and you're getting ready for preparation for the next season?
Yeah, that's the ruthless reality of it, because that set of boys, that camaraderie that you've built, and that kind of team spirit, ultimately is usually going to be, unless the manager's quite wise, like the Burnley and Bournemouth, a lot of them players been there for years, it's usually ripped apart because the football ways that we need to now spend more money, get what perceived better quality players, and actually that usually I find kind of rocks the boat. You do their players a dishonour that you can still keep them around the squad and achieve success through them in different ways, So it had a flip side to it that I knew I was obviously staying because I'd done really well. I played a lot of games, but there was a lot of my teammates who'd played important roles, like scored important games, that had played an important contribution to that season. They already knew that they were gone. So as for them, I'm jumping around, but you could see it was an anti-climax for them, and particularly at the kind of celebration meals and stuff like that, they'd already been told at that point they were going. So you kind of want to be respectful as well. I wasn't a young kid at that point, so I was a big part of the team. I was a senior pro, and that was playing on my mind as well. That your heart goes out to them boys who for whatever reason, right or wrong, football's a game of opinions, and ultimately they weren't going to be there with me. So that was for me, that was sad as well, that I wasn't going to be plying my trade with them boys that I've built up a friendship, and then boys that ultimately I'm still friends with to this day.
Talk me through next season. How was it from a Brentford's point of view? What did you think of the players coming in and the squad and everything moving forward at that time?
Again, you're looking, as soon as that kind of like the celebrations are done with a week, you're looking to build as most pros will. I worked twice as hard that summer to then kick on and prove myself in League One. I'd played in the Championship quite a bit, so I knew that was kind of the level I wanted to be at least. And even though the injuries had taken their toll a little bit, I wanted to guide them boys because I saw we had the quality, and I wanted to guide them towards another promotion, or at least having a strong year in League One, because we were comfortably worthy to play in League One and to push for the playoffs or something like that, So I remember doing so much in the off season with the S&C team. I've had about 2 weeks break, and I was back in, and I was flying when I come back. Me and another guy called Ryan Dixon, we'd done a lot, and we kind of set our hopes at playing at a lot higher level. And we were really flying it. He was a left back, I was centre half, and we were flying that year. We were quite high up in the league with about 15 games gone. And yeah, we were doing really well, holding our own in League One. Obviously, playing some big clubs. Leeds is one I remember. Leeds away. There were some big clubs in League One at the time. Bradford, as we know as fans, clubs have up and downs, and for us as players, that's just a great chance to play at them clubs. Whatever league you're playing in.
Everyone relishes a trip to Ellen Road. What was it like to be an away player at Ellen Road? Tell me about that experience.
Yeah, it's quite a place, and lucky enough or fortunate enough, I've worked hard to be there, whatever you want to call it. But I played quite a few times with Millwall, and the Millwall Leeds kind of thing was it was a weird one, to be honest, because Millwall Leeds is a big fixture. It's two clubs kind of fans hate each other, and there's a real atmosphere. I remember us driving in on the coach, and us sometimes have police escorts, and the stuff being thrown at the bus, and that for a player, even though it's obviously quite dangerous and there's a worrying side to it, we were a little bit crazy and we used to love it, as it showed that they cared and we were winding them up, and it was part of another chance to get 3 points off them, that they cared so much, because we knew if we got a goal against them, it was going to silence the stadium. So it was a little bit weird turning up with Brentford, and there's no police escort, there's no kind of like trouble in the crowd or anything like that. It was just a game of football, there was no all these other sides to it, and I think we beat them 1-0, so it was a great start to League One.